Love to heal a nation is the greatest power. A wind of destruction is blowing over this land. And now the earth is trembling with man's oppression of man. Now the time comes to sit down and rediscover what's life. Show the world the true meaning of real love, power, not strife. Must bow. Unity is the banner, so come together. I say, and this love is for freedom, it's growing stronger each day. Bring down the power of love, I say. The power of love, I say, is the greatest power. Love to heal a nation. So rejoice in a rhythm of celebration. Come on. Lift your voice with a feeling of satisfaction as one. And let we move with a purpose, all freedom lovers. Hold tight. Stepping out of the darkness with one direction inside. Bring down the power of love, I say. The power of love, I say, is the greatest power of hell and damnation. Love to heal a nation. Bring down the power of love, I say. The power of love, I say. Stop hell and damnation.
Hotel, Ekaru, Asheo, and greetings to all. This is the Anu Asafo Show, where Pan-Africanism meets African traditional spirituality, with your host, Brother Wale Mango Ifa, and me, Brother Ifa Woman Oshundele. And this week we are pleased to have another groundbreaking episode lined up for you all. But first, as always, here is the African pledge. We are an African people. We will remember the humanity, glory, and suffering of our ancestors. We will honor the struggles of our elders. We will strive to bring new values and new life to our people. We will have peace and harmony among us. We will be loving, sharing, and creative. We will work, study, and listen, so we may learn so we may teach. We will cultivate self-reliance. We will struggle to resurrect and unify our homeland. We will raise many children for our nation. We will have discipline, patience, devotion, and courage. We will live as modules to provide new directions for our people. We will be free and self-determining. We are an African, and we will win. We will win. We will win. Ashe, ashe, ashe. I'd like to welcome everybody this week to another segment of a fantastic show that we have planned. But first, I want to share a post from social media by Brother T.K. Atkins. And I really like this, what he expressed. And it's called the African Survival Kit, the Black Man's Handbook. For you to deter and overcome a gang of robbers that constantly burglarize your home, you have to understand them, how they operate, why they constantly choose your home, what they come for, how they make their plans, how they get in, how they get out, the routes they ply in and out, their hideouts, their fortress, how they manage and use your resources. Everything must be taken into careful consideration and understood completely. This is the same manner, and even 100 times more, the African must study and understand the European, Arab, and other men. He must understand why Africa was and still is a prize for them. He must understand why they constantly set their eyes, hands, and tentacles and weapons on Africa, and Africans. He must understand why they set forth and invade her. He must understand the methods they use, the routes they ply in and out. He must understand what they have come for, what they take away, how they take them away, why they take them away, how they use them and manage them. He must understand how they have got to the top of the food chain position. He must understand the tactics they use to remain there, the systems they use to protect themselves and better their positions at the expense of others. All these and more he must understand, and then he must go 100 steps further to think and act ahead of them, to con them at their own game, to retrieve what has been taken or stolen from him, to be able to better understand these resources and use them wisely for his own ultimate benefit. He must be able to think ahead and know of their every move and further protect his homes and lands against their every move, the very basics for survival. He must learn and understand how to place himself at the top of the food chain in balance with understanding nature. He must understand sustainability and place huge emphasis on continuity. He must think of himself today or in the next 100 years, but rather in the next 10,000 years, where he and his race and land shall be. He must have a strategic plan for their community dominance and control of their lands, resources to their benefit. He mustn't pride himself on individualism, but rather on his community. He must understand that his wealth doesn't lie in how much he personally owns or controls, but rather how much his community owns and controls collectively. He must work for his own kind and community and not for self. He must do everything necessary to make sure he controls all levels of the media and propaganda, all levels of education, religion and belief systems, economy, politics, social structure, and culture. All these must be based on his Africanism. He must build and develop all these with his race, future survival, and cultures as a core, with his true history and knowledge as the foundation. He must learn to place his community first in all negotiations and dealings with other men. He must strive to maintain the upper hand in any negotiation and mustn't come out short in any business deal. He must learn that building his economy is key for his survival. He must know that the welfare of his kind and community is paramount, as a healthy people is a wealthy people. He must always exercise love to his kind and hate to anyone who seeks their downfall or death. He must treat every man with suspicion because, as history has taught us, we can't be too careful. The lack of suspicion is partly what has led us down this road. He must treat even his own kind with suspicion on this journey to upliftment, and even after we arrive at the final destination, until we have finally consolidated ourselves as controllers and rulers of our land, resources, history, economy, education, religion, politics, business. As history has taught us as well, our own very kind have been used to invade, enslave, derail, and destroy us. He must be true to himself and community always. His ultimate allegiance must be to Africa and Africanism, and he must stop to expose and speak and act out against any of his kind who seek to derail the revolution, be it his father, mother, son, daughter, wife, or husband, the survival of hundreds of millions of Africa. Their lives, livelihoods, and futures far outweigh any sentiment we must intend to play favorites with. Again, our ultimate allegiance must be to Africa and Africanism, to the growth, development, upliftment, dominance, and liberation of our people and lands anywhere there may be. He must seek to return all peoples of African descent to Africa. Rather, he must seek to use their positions in the various nations they are as tentacles and outlets of Africanism. He should strive to work with his kindred in the diaspora and together help rebuild and develop their communities along Africanism. He must use these communities overseas as outposts for Africanism, as strongholds to influence matters abroad and better the position and health and wealth of Africa and Africans on this earth. He must work tirelessly to see that every inch of this continent, Alkebulan, now called Africa, is covered and controlled by black Africans. He must ensure that the illegal aliens on his motherland are removed, as they have occupied those lands legally, but rather illegally. He must understand that the control of his lands, every inch from the south, north, west, and east, in and outside Africa, is earthly mission, his calling, his manifesto on this earth. He must show support for his kindred, the original peoples of various lands around the world, and fight for their upliftment and recontrol of their lands and resources. He must seek to the freedom of all Africans still in slavery, either in Africa or abroad, and justice brought upon the slavers. He must ensure the negotiation and release of his land from every prison around this earth. He must then work on their assessment, health, crimes committed, rehabilitation, and reintegration into the society. He must form partnerships with other oppressed people who share his vision and who ardent seeking to be his new masters. He must be prepared at all times to defend himself to the very end and never settle for surrender or submission. He must work tirelessly to develop as many weapons as possible to match all existing warfare and place himself in a position where no man will even think of attacking him militarily or otherwise. He must focus on rebuilding the family unit and focus a lot of attention on the children and youth. He must properly educate them from an early age in all fields necessary, history, arts, sciences, etc. He must give them the freedom to learn, relearn, and unlearn, to explore their natural abilities and not program the like factory-made dolls. He must listen to them, take their views into consideration, He must focus on their health, physical and mental, develop them in sports and music as well. He must take care of his elderly. He must do away with superstitions and focus more on reality, understanding nature, and striving for a balance within her. He must not cry over spilled milk, but rather understand how he firstly got the milk, why and how it spilled, so that when he gets another, he shall be able to protect it better from spilling. He must always remember that he is a man, a human being, nature's firstborn human. He must bow to no man, to no race, to no foreign system. Again, his ultimate allegiance must be to Africa and Africanism. Ashe. This was an excellent piece written by Brother T.K. Akins, also known as Akin Adeseye. Asheo for such a fine piece. Secondly, I also want to share the truthful and heartfelt views of Baba Akoda Awo, what he stated on social media this week. And he's talking about godparents in Ifa and Orisha. He said, let it be known from the start, there's no such thing as godparents in Ifa, Orisha, and Egungun study, practice, and worship. This myth hails from Catholicism. The Catholic Church has created this concept of parenting. In the Catholic Church, the biological parents of a child will choose two individuals, a male and a female. It is not even necessary that the two individuals are married. These two individuals pledge allegiance to the child in a christening ceremony, that if anything should happen to the biological parents, the godparents will step in and assume the continuing rearing of the child. He has a notice that you have the right to call anyone by any label, sticker, tag, or title that you choose. But know and understand there is no godparent concept in Ifa and Orisha. Ifa is built and established on a premise of teachers and students in which the entitlement is clear and speaks for itself loudly. How is one to reap the great benefits of the many teachers that Ifa and Orisha have to offer if you are enslaved, tied, and obligated to a godparent or godparents who are under the understanding that you are to be of great benefit to learn, and not them, you. Those of us who carry the name of Babalawo, Iyanifa, Babalarisha, Olarisha are servants of the people, not to be mistaken or confused with the understanding of African royalty, which is kings and queens. Do not allow yourself to fall victim to the king and queen and loyal subject complex. It is time to put this myth to rest. Even Olodumare is not our father or mother. It is a creator and creation relationship. We are born with two sets of parents, biological and spiritual. Our spiritual parents are our Orisha parents, two sets, not three. A Babalawo is a father, messenger, and teacher of Ifa. And Iyanifa is a mother of Ifa, caretaker of Ifa, and caregiver of the people. An Orisha priest or priestess is a father of Orisha or mother of Orisha, caretaker of Orisha, caregiver of the people. We must stop feeding into what is popular. A high level of popularity is not an indication or a manifestation of truth. Most high levels of popularity come from being a person who tells a bunch of people what they want to hear, not what they need to hear. We must destroy this level of codependency that some of us have created and have allowed others to create for us. It is a time to see clearly and again put to rest all of this godfather, godmother, godbrother, godsister madness. If you come across an Ifa elder who has a temple and you join, you have now become a member of that Ifa temple. Same rule of thumb if you join someone's Ile or Egbe. You have now become a member of a group of individuals that have or should have sworn some form of allegiance to its leadership. In life, we walk a path on a journey to understanding our destiny and what is needed to navigate that course of action are good teachers, for we are students of the multifaceted aspects of life. Stop looking for what you already have, what you want, and start pursuing that which you need. You need a good teacher. You need to be a good student because you need divine knowledge, wisdom, and understanding to set the foundation, structure, and the premise of the life's journey. Going back, case in point, we create obstacles and roadblocks for ourselves, living outside of the order and dynamics of Ifa, Orisha, and the ancestors. Under the umbrella of the godparent myth, what happens if the Awo is unmarried and waiting on Ifa to send him a wife? And there are women in his Ile Ifa, that Ifa is waiting to come of age and maturity, mentally, physically, and spiritually in their Ifa and Orisha study practice. And one day when the Awo has one of these women on the mat, Ifa brings to his attention that she is the one the Awo is to take, love, and respect as his wife. How will this now come to pass? When the Awo has been addressing this woman as his goddaughter, see the confusion. And it will bring about the same form of confusion when the time comes for the Awo to navigate other members to each other. Again, how will this come to pass? If these individuals are under the impression that he or she is the god brother or god sister, it will be as what it is today, a recipe for disaster. Life is about adding, not subtracting. We are to live our lives adding to the different aspects of our lives. Adding is building. Building is growing strong. We must weigh the pros and cons of any given situation. Life and learning, growing and progressing in Ifa and Orisha is common sense based. Now, what I have learned in my life is that common sense is everything but common. A good teacher will always leave a student a clear understanding of things to the very best of that teacher's ability. If you have a teacher or teachers and you are still walking around in a state of confusion, entertaining many questions, that is something that you need to address. There are so many individuals who have embraced this godparent myth to such a degree that they cannot even respectfully leave the company of those who are not teaching them, growing them, and progressing them because of this godparent obligation they have taken on. To think about leaving a so-called godparent leaves the godchild in a state of feeling that they are being unloyal and doing something wrong. It is a mind game, people. You are being played. You're being played with to the mouse. These so-called godparents want a lifelong allegiance, also known as slavery. Do not allow anyone to mentally, physically, or spiritually enslave you. Anyone will gladly stay and keep the company of those who are teaching, growing, and progressing them. But the question is, are you growing and progressing? With whom you are keeping company? Allow no one to obligate you to them. If you are part of something that does not fulfill you mentally, physically, and spiritually, but your position is more of a benefit to the so-called godparent and not yourself, that is a problem. In the teacher-student relationship, the student is the benefactor of knowledge. In the student-teacher relationship, the teacher is supposed to be of great benefit to the student, and the student is of great benefit to the teacher by way of properly representing that which has been taught. And he signs, I am a Kota Awo, and I stand committed. He had a mouthful to say, and it was so thought-provoking, so honest, so to the point. At this time, we're going to take a short break, and when we return, we will all get the opportunity to meet our very special guest, the Yuma Bellamy. At this time, we will take a short break.
Greetings, one and all, and thank you for listening to Anu Asafo this Sunday. I am now bringing you the Anu Nation announcements on this beautiful segment of Anu Asafo. We want to first thank you for tuning in once again and being a supporter and participant in this journey of the Asafo as dictated and governed by our ancestral call. We would also like to thank our Chief Jegna, Haru Yuya Asan Anu of the Anu Spiritual Order and Head Instructor of the Sadulu House Spiritual Center for his continued guidance and support. Look out for the new student forum that will be created on the saduluhouse.com website. That is saduluhouse.com. This forum will be exclusive to the students of the Anu Spiritual Training Class Series. Chief Jegna Haru Yuya Asan Anu will also offer free as well as supplemental classes to registered students and the general public. Also, if you are an Mfundi and would like to participate on the Anu Asafo Show, please respond to the link on the Anu Spiritual Training Facebook page or email omilade at saduluhouse.com. That is OMILADE at saduluhouse.com. Also, in other happenings, please check out the newest release from Anu Publishing, Natural Hair for Young Women, in which Felicia Terrell Anu discusses holistic approaches to natural hair care for young women. Natural hair care for young women can be found at anu-bookstore.com. That is ANU-BOOKSTORE.com. Also, look out for Anu Publishing's forthcoming book on shell readings, which will cover the Sacred 16 Major Odu and the casting of the Meriden Lagoon. As always, please make sure to tune in to Chief Jegna Haru Yuya Asan Anu during his Foundational Fridays broadcast, which airs at 7:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time on Blog Talk Radio. If you or someone you know has a background in spiritual sciences and is committed to bringing a broad spectrum of spiritual and metaphysical information to an international audience, please contact us at anunation.org. That is ANUNATION.org to become a co-host for the channel Enlightenment and Transformation. That concludes our announcements for this Sunday, and now back to Anu Asafo.
Ashe, Ashe. It's 30 minutes after the hour. Listening to the Anu Asafo Show, where Pan-Africanism meets African traditional spirituality, with your host, Brother Wale Mongo Ifa, and me, Ifa Wume Oshundele. Thank you for all of your attendance in this week Enlightenment and Transformation Network show, Anu Asafo. And it's great to be here again this week. This weekend, sitting in our studio is the legendary healer and teacher, Dr. Yuma Bellomy, better known as Dr. U, who is the co-founder and chief executive officer of U360 Holistic Health and Wellness. It is a small company offering all natural and holistic services and products. Holistic meaning supportive of the body, mind, spirit, and environment. The company's name and logo symbolizes the emphasis on balancing oneself, not just in one aspect, but all around, just like the 360 degrees in a circle. Dr. U's company focus is to promote total healing for our collective communities through information, motivation, and progressive action through all avenues of nature that nourish us as a whole. At this time, we'd like to welcome Dr. Yuma Bellomy, better known as Dr. U.
Today on Anu Asafo, we have Yuma Dr. U. Bellomy, who is a certified holistic health consultant, herbalist, holistic wellness advocate, healing workshop facilitator, and performing artist. He is also the owner of U360 Holistic Health and Wellness in Washington, D.C., which is a small company offering all natural and holistic services and products. These services and products are intended to support the body, mind, spirit, and environment. And the focus of this company is holistic health and wellness to promote total healing for our collective communities via information, motivation, and progressive action through all avenues of nature that nourish us as a whole. Welcome, Dr. Yu.
Thank you so much. It's an honor to be here.
Awesome, awesome. So we gave you a little bit of an introduction, but can you please fill us in a little more on your personal background and just give us a more an understanding of why you do what you do and what you do and how you contribute to the community?
Okay, well, my personal background, I really got started through my interest in health and wellness, which was planted by my grandmother, by my mother, by my father. So I always have to make sure that I honor and give praise to them for planting the seed to get me interested in health and wellness. But as I developed along, I got the opportunity to work under and work with and study with a master herbalist, a few of them actually, and eventually that seeing their successes definitely led me to be more aware of the possibilities for healing our communities. And so I took it upon myself to continue to study and learn and eventually start on my own to branch out and do this type of work.
Right. So can you tell us, what is herbalism to you personally?
Well, herbalism to me it's a way of life. Herbalism just encompasses being in tune with nature. And that's something that many of us in our communities have really gotten away from, especially in the urban communities, and especially here in the United States, because the environments where we're set up in, a lot of times you don't see the same plant life, or the plant life is disregarded. A lot of the information from our elders who were really more in tune with nature, because of the lifestyles and stresses that they were put under and, the conditions where they're forced to work, certain types of jobs and things of that nature. Really, a lot of that information has gotten lost, and a lot of that way of life has gotten lost. And so it's resurfacing. It's at a time where it's resurfacing, but it's not the same. And a lot of the media doesn't really support getting back into, what's going to keep and sustain us health-wise, holistically.
Right. So when you say that, I have a question. Do melanated people require a different standard of health than what's prescribed by Western medicine? And, if so, what does that standard of health look like, and what does optimal health look like? Because you say that we got away from, where we were and where we used to be, where we were at a state of health.
Yes. Well, yeah, our needs are going to be a little different because biologically we're a little different. But what it looks like is that, one, we need to get back into what it is that our ancestors were doing, because we share the same bloodline. And by us sharing the same bloodline as our ancestors, the things that, were beneficial to them are going to be beneficial for us, as opposed to, a different bloodline. Different blood types have different foods, different herbs, different, just different things in general that's going to agree with them more biologically speaking. And so by getting back into what it is that our ancestors used to do and getting more into nature and away from synthetic things that are not biocompatible neither, that's really what's going to strengthen us all as a whole.
Right. So do you prescribe different diets, and do diets have anything to do with like how healthy you are or what level of spirituality that you can reach? Because I've noticed that there's a trend to promote veganism and the raw movement, And is that necessarily African?
Well, that's a good question. I don't like to use the term diet. I want to start out by saying that because diet implies that this is something that you do temporarily to lose weight or to attain a certain goal, and then you just go back to doing what you were doing before. You know, and so what it is that I typically recommend is adjustments in the way that we're living our lives. You know, lifestyle adjustment. You know, changes in our food habits, period. You know, rather than temporary habits. You know, we're looking at what's going to sustain us. As it said, prevention is always better than the cure. So we don't want to wait and put ourselves in a position where we're going to develop these different health disparities that we're experiencing in our communities or individually for that matter.
Right.
And then say we want to fix the problem when we can prevent the problem from happening in the first place. So I start out by saying that. And as far as, attaining the African perspective on it, yeah, it's very African because civilization started there, and it's scientifically proven that the first people, you know, were vegans or were vegetarians. You know, people use the term vegan and use the term vegetarian, and really it's kind of pretty much the same thing. It's more of a political thing that makes the difference between the two, you know, because people start to include the dairy products and the fish and the eggs and things like that, you know, in the term vegetarian by saying that you're not eating animal flesh. But when we look at nature, and if we use nature as the standard, we don't call animals vegan that just eat vegetables. We call them vegetarian animals.
Right.
You know, and so when we look at things from outside of the manipulative standpoint, you know, it becomes a lot more clear. But, you know, yeah, the first man, you know, you can go right down to here in D.C. where I am. They have the Smithsonian Museum of Natural History. And right inside there they have a display that talks about, you know, the origins of man, so to speak. And they show what the original diet of the man was, or the original food intake of the man was, which was, you know, based off of plant life, you know, whole plants that they found within their environment. And at that time, you know, again, fire was discovered and things like that way later. You know, they didn't really need the fire aspect because they were out there in the hot sun. So why do they need to build a fire? You know what I'm saying? And so all of this stuff was kind of like later on down the line. But, of course, it's only fitting that, you know, when we look at nature and the natural evolution, just about anything in nature feeds off of what's in its environment. And is equipped to handle what it is that it needs in order to survive. So when we look at the biology of a human being, you know, we're not equipped to, say, hunt down a lot of the things that we eat as far as animal flesh and whatnot is concerned. You know, we're not equipped to go and chase down a cow and jump on it and, you know, eat his hair and crack down his bones and, you know, be able to digest his flesh raw without us getting sick.
Right.
You know, we no animal in nature, no mammal drinks milk from another mammal. You know, so these are the things that we have to look at. We always want to look to nature as our guide because this is what's been shown to be the healthiest choices for us.
Right. So what do you say to those individuals who are kind of stuck in a rut and they don't know what the first step is or what the first step is that they can take to eat healthier because of all the processed foods that are in the grocery stores, or just because they don't have the education to know or haven't been educated on the fact that being a vegetarian or eating vegetables is healthier for them? than these processed foods or things that aren't in nature?
Well, to tell you the truth, I think that it's primarily an issue of discipline. Many of our people, I would dare to say that it's common knowledge with many of our people that eating fruits and vegetables are healthy. And I go around, I do presentations and workshops and lectures, and I like to interact with the audience when I do that. And a lot of times when I ask people, I say, well, let's talk about food for a moment. And name some foods that are healthy for us. And you can bet just about everybody who's raising their hand up will name a fruit, a vegetable, or will say fruits and vegetables.
Right.
Somewhere in there, a majority of them. Every once in a while you might hear something like fish or, but most of the time you're going to hear a fruit or a vegetable as mentioned. And so we know that fruits and vegetables are healthy for us. But then it becomes an issue of the discipline. And a lot of what's not really considered is that there's an intentional effort, that's put out through these different companies that are profiting off of us being sick, off of us making unhealthy choices. And they're influencing us to make the wrong decisions, to not think about or even want to think about the choices that are going to be healthy for us, but to have us following, our lower selves, so to speak, or our base instincts, not really thinking with our higher minds, but just going off of our lust of food, and they have these commercials where you have, burgers with stuff dripping on it and sauces smeared on it and all of that stuff. I mean, you can run down the whole caboodle, but they put all of these marketing things out there, and there's a lot of subconscious things that go with that as well. Like, for example, you may see a steak commercial on TV, and you'll hear a guy who's narrating the commercial, and his voice is extremely deep. Right. And what that does is it stimulates something within the man that subconsciously says that eating steak is manly. Which actually has been proven to be the opposite. It can cause erectile dysfunction and clogs the heart and the arteries and, all types of stuff like that. So, it's a lot of it is the marketing, the influence of our, what we're exposed to, and even beyond the media, but even our family habits and, what we were subjected to during the enslavement process. And then some of it comes down to discipline.
Right.
And so I would say that, start with the basics and get back to the basics. Get back to your basic fruits and vegetables, even if you eat the other stuff, as you're transitioning, as a lot of people do. Right. Don't overwhelm yourself because you always want to do something that's going to stick, but start with the basics, getting back into incorporating more fruits, more vegetables into what you eat on a daily basis, and then starting to taper off of the things that are less healthy for you or not healthy for you at all. So getting away from a lot of the packaged things and getting into preparing your own food more and making it a lifestyle. And there's a lot of information that you can find, online, or you can find someone such as myself or many other people who do what I do or do something similar to work with, who have the experience that can share tips that will help you along the way to help make things palatable and make it practical for you to incorporate on a daily basis.
Exactly. I mean, that's some of the complaints that I hear is it's not palatable. It's not as good as the salt or the soul food, but we always have to ask what's the alternative. And so my next question is, so can you have dis-ease without the symptoms? Because we do intake a lot of unhealthy things, and we do have stress, and sometimes we have things that we don't even know that we have things. And so if there are no symptoms, how do you know that you're in a state of dis-ease?
Well, to tell you the truth, there's a lot of symptoms that go unnoticed because we don't know what to look for. And that's one of the things, like, let's say if someone has diabetes, for example.
Okay.
Just to put it out there. If you're used to running to the bathroom a whole bunch of times throughout the day and you're really not thinking too much about it, but that's just what you do, it becomes part of your lifestyle, you don't know to look for that as a symptom.
Right.
Even though it's listed when you really do the research and you know the information about diabetes, or if you just happen to be thirsty a lot, a lot of people don't think twice about stuff like that. It's when you start to feel drained, or when things start to pop up on your skin, or when the more overt, noticeable symptoms is what people will tend to usually go to the doctor for. But when it comes down to the subtle symptoms, a lot of times they get overlooked. And then there's some symptoms that even, it may not necessarily be associated with a particular condition. So let's say someone who has hypertension, for example. Someone who has hypertension, they'll say, if you look up the so-called official information on hypertension online, they may say that hypertension can go without noticeable effects, but if you say take someone's pulse, that can be a symptom if the pulse is too fast. If you notice that you get stressed very easily, that could be a potential symptom. If you notice that you have, sometimes discoloring of the face where one area is darker than the rest of your face, sometimes that can be a potential symptom that something is wrong,
Right.
And so these things that a lot of times people tend to overlook. And as I was taught and told, the body doesn't lie,
Right.
So things that by the time you get to a state where you receive a diagnosis, the condition has already been going on for quite some time.
Right. And when you get there, you're in a state of disease. So we have a question. What issues can and cannot be solved by using herbs?
What issues can and cannot be solved by using herbs?
Yes.
To my knowledge, most issues can be solved by using herbs. Some of the issues that cannot be solved by using herbs, things that are traumatic type injuries, birth defects, those type of things. Most things that you would think of, if you were just to run down a list of things, probably 9 out of 10 at least, there is at least one or more herbs that I know of offhand that could address that. So we're talking about even the so-called incurable things, the HIV and AIDS, cancer, herpes, diabetes, asthma, all of the major conditions that are really afflicting our people, heart disease, hypertension. There's at least, one herb or more that I know of offhand that could address that, including infections.
Wow. So speaking of infections, there are studies that say that 80 to 90% of Americans have candida.
Yes.
And this is the underlying cause of most autoimmune diseases and symptoms that Americans experience. Is there any validity to this, or is this just something that they've made up to make us look to something other than what the root causes of our diseases are?
Well, it plays a role. There's a multitude of different things that can play a role in your body. And a lot of times from the allopathic perspective, or even if it's not allopathic, and say its approach, or let me reword that. Even if it's not, say, allopathic as in the sense of it coming from a medical doctor, sometimes
right.
naturopaths or, people who are doing research and things like that tend to take that approach to it. And so that approach tends to like to isolate things and say, okay, well, we're going to attribute this condition to this one cause, which a lot of times is some type of a germ. So we like to blame the germ. We like to blame the yeast, the candida. We like to blame the bacteria. We like to blame the virus, the fungi, but at the end of the day, it's the lifestyle that contributes to these conditions. When you look at the candida is a symptom of the lifestyle. Everybody has candida within our bodies, and it serves a purpose within our bodies. When the candida becomes an overgrowth, that's when it starts to cause issues. But why does the candida become an overgrowth? Because the candida is in place to help to clean up waste inside of the body. And when we're constantly polluting our bodies with a bunch of foods that cause waste buildup, then you're giving the candida more to feed off of. You're giving parasites more to feed off of. You create an environment where these different types of, microorganisms can thrive, can grow, can reproduce at a very fast rate, and a rate where it overwhelms the immune system because it lowers the immune system also.
Right.
And so with that, we're looking at a more holistic cause. When we look at stress and the role that stress plays, stress has a physiological effect also, lowers the immune system. When we look at, certain toxins in the environment, certain toxins in the environment can contribute to these conditions also. So it's we don't want to isolate and say that the candida yeast is the cause and the sole cause for this particular condition, but it may be a contributing factor in a lot of cases. But again, we're looking at the lifestyle as a whole.
Right. So what is your personal approach or process to holistic healing when clients or people come for consultations, with you? And how does that differ from some of the others out there or different approaches that might be taken?
Well, from, dealing from a holistic standpoint, we have to look at all or as much as possible of the potential factors that are involved. And so I don't just look at things like quote-unquote diet. I don't just look at what herbs you can take, but we're looking at the way that you live your life and how that contributes to the condition or how that can contribute to your healing by making adjustments. And so we deal with it from the spiritual standpoint. And a lot of times people tend to add like a mysticism to spirituality. And while there may be some, mysticism to it because there's not a full understanding of spirituality, spirituality is very practical, and when you look at it from a scientific standpoint, you're dealing with energy and you're dealing with your direction. So what's your direction in life and what's your energy like? How are you receiving and giving energy? Now we're looking at how your spirituality is functioning in a practical standpoint. We look at the mental aspect. So with the mental aspect, how do you perceive things? What type of information do you have? Then we're looking at the physical standpoint. Now we're looking at, what type of foods you eat. Do you exercise? Do you get outside? Do you get fresh air? Then we're looking at the environmental aspect. So the environmental aspect is also a community aspect. So how is your family support? What's your family relationships like? How is your work stressing you out? Do you get out to nature? All of these different things. What's going on in your house? Like someone who has asthma, it may keep being triggered in the home because they have mold in the house, is one prime example. So we look at all of those different aspects and then we compose a regimen that is workable for the individual, that's going to help him or her to address all of those issues. And a lot of times, take it step by step so it's not overwhelming. So again, it has to be workable, it has to be practical. And I think that's what kind of sets it up from a lot of what other health service providers and professionals would offer, because I know that I look at it from that full perspective. There's others, I'm not the only one, but I think that sets it aside, just the perspective and how we're handling everything and addressing it in its completeness.
Right. And so do you think that at the root of most of our dis-ease is the spiritual aspect? And if so, how can we begin to work on that, even before we go into the physical or our surroundings or our different aspects?
Well, yeah, spiritual, everything is energy first. So again, spirit is dealing with energy and is dealing with direction. And everything is energy first. We are energetic or energy beings, which are just in a solid state. But how we process energy, even as far as eating, if you want to even look at that, how we process the food is based on our energy and the energy of the food. So everything has a spiritual cause, and there's always, you can even see patterns in people who develop certain conditions and what their life is like based on their energy, how they're perceiving things, the whole thing that we just went through. You can see patterns on their energy and their direction or lack thereof. So for example, someone who is experiencing HIV, a lot of times they'll have issues with self-love. So this is something that you start to see patterns with all across the board. And you can pretty much look at somebody and you can feel them out, and being in tune with yourself and being in tune with the individual who you are seeing or being in front of, you can tell kind of what's off.
Right. That is so interesting. Thank you for that. How does holistic medicine go about treating the ever-growing crisis in mental health here in the West, where we don't necessarily have a standard for that, and as communities or melanated communities haven't necessarily always dealt with mental health issues in the most productive manner?
Yeah, that's true, and it's very evident. You can see that whenever you are out in the community and you run across people with mental health issues, you can pretty much see that it's not really being dealt with in a proper or, a suitable manner. But mental health, yes, we definitely address that. And that's a must, because with mental health is dealing with how the mind works, how you think, how you perceive things. And a lot of what affects us, period, and leads to degenerative conditions, whether it be mental health or whatever it is based on two things physically, which is dealing with toxic accumulation in the body and is dealing with malnutrition. So those two factors there, you can pretty much fix on just about any condition that's out there. So if you want to talk about from schizophrenia down to ADHD, quote unquote, you can look at those factors and know that they're there, autism, etc.
Right.
The way that we would address it is from a physical standpoint, but again, we're addressing it from more than a physical standpoint. But from a physical standpoint, it starts with working to cleanse the system of any type of toxic buildup that's in the system that could be contributing to the mental clutter.
Right.
Then secondly, we want to make sure that when the body is clean or as the body is cleansing, that we supporting the body with the proper nutrients that's going to help to support and promote normal brain function. And so that's a key thing because a lot of the foods that we are eating are practically junk foods.
Right.
They have a physiological effect where they are congesting our systems, and they actually can slow down the vibratory rate of the nerve transmission, or sometimes they can speed it up and burn out the nerve cells.
Wow.
You know, and there's times where it can actually cause damage to the brain as well. You know, things like processed sugar, especially, you know, because it's very acid forming inside of the body, and it eats up a lot of the antioxidants and, you know, free radical scavengers and things that protect the body in plain terminology. You know, it eats up a lot of the nutrients and things that protect the body, and it contributes to damaging the body because acid, when you think about acid, the first thing people think about is probably burning through something, and that's basically what an overload of that does inside of the body. So just imagine, you know, you're eating, you know, Doritos and, you know, with all of these added chemicals that are building acid, and some of them are acids themselves. You're drinking Coca-Cola and Pepsi every day. You know, these things have an effect that actually damage the cells, kill the cells, you know, and also can affect how fast or slow that the cells are able to communicate with each other.
Right.
In the way that they're able to communicate with each other. So that's where you have a lot of mental health disparities on that end. But again, you know, in dealing with the spiritual aspect, you can look at the origin of a lot of mental health conditions to some type of traumatic experience, or some type of experience that they just did not process the energy from well. And then you can also look at not getting the proper, you know, again, the proper nutrients that the body needs to function properly. So even a lot of birth defects, so to speak, that's dealing with mental health conditions can stem from that cause, not having the right nutrients that normally support the body's ability to think or to, you know, at a normal rate.
Right. So do you think that's also where learning disabilities in our children, ADHD, the overprevalence of classification in our schools due to learning disabilities is coming from the processed sugars, the lack of nutrients, maybe even spiritual issues that the kids weren't able to process, or our babies weren't able to process?
That's a huge factor. In fact, I would even go on a limb and say a good 80 to 90-something% of those issues that you just named can be directly associated with that. Like you'll actually find that when you look at the way that these children eat or they're fed or what their home lives are like, you know, you'll find that there's some definite dysfunctionality going on there, and they're not really having their needs met. So I would definitely say that's a huge percentage of what's causing that. As far as learning disabilities can sometimes be attributed to that, and sometimes it can just be attributed to the way that they're being taught or the way that their style of learning. You know, in the system, the public school system particularly, you know, things are taught a certain type of way, basically a certain type of way, where African children are not really accustomed to learning that type of way, traditionally speaking, because we're more holistic in our approach, you know, just by our nature. So when we're taught in a way that's not conducive to that, and it's just teaching from one perspective, you know, well, this is, you have to read this book, and, you know, I'm going to talk to you. You read this book here, and, you know, I expect you to remember this information and for you to process it. And you're not getting, say, the visuals that go along with it. You're not getting the hands-on experience that goes with it. You know, you're
right.
not being able to utilize your, your full being. You utilize your whole senses to really make it an experience. You know, then you may not pick it up as quickly as someone else who may be a little bit more adept at that.
Right.
So a lot of times when the children are worked with from someone who understands that, then those types of aspects can be worked around, and you'll see vast improvements. You know, when you are helping to address the children's emotional issues, by helping to address their needs by providing things that they may not have at home. You know, by being a father figure to those who may not have fathers, or being a mother figure to those who may not have mothers, you know, to show that you care. A lot of times those types of things can be worked around.
Right. Thank you for that. One of our listeners also wanted to know, what are the best foods to eat when you are planning a pregnancy, and how can a woman best prepare her health to make sure she is in optimal shape?
Oh, that's a good question also. Well, the best foods to eat, you know, again, we're sticking with whole plant-based foods, just in general. But when you are pregnant, you need more calories, you need more fat, you know, things that are going to help to support the baby as well as far as the baby's development. You know, and so you want to eat a little bit more on the fats. You want to eat a little bit more on the seeds and nuts and avocados and things like that. And you want things that are very rich in B vitamins also, you know, which is very, very important. You know, so you want to eat a good variety of foods. And that's pretty much in general. But, you know, with pregnant women, you want to eat that a little bit more in abundance, you know, and those types of foods there, so that way the baby is getting the nourishment for the brain and all of that. The essential fatty acids, you know, omega-3 especially, and they have all types of supplements in the health stores now for that, because it's been shown that these certain nutrients are crucial for the baby's development, especially neurological and brain development. So like the fats, the B vitamins are very, very crucial.
Right. And so you mentioned omega-3, which people usually associate with fish. How else can you get omega-3s outside of fish or taking supplements? What foods can you draw those out of? Well,
you can get omega-3s as far as plant-based foods. You can find them in flaxseed or flaxseed meal. You know, you can find them in chia seeds. Chia seed is actually one of the better or best sources, and actually they even have a chia seed oil that they have in some stores that you can utilize in food preparation. It's a little expensive, but hemp seeds, you know, also have that as well. You can find it in many sea vegetables, things like kelp and spirulina, you know, your algae-type foods. So those are all sources, and other foods also have omega-3s as well. It's put out there. They may not have it in as abundant amounts, you know, as the foods that I just mentioned. But they do have it in, like you can find omega-3 in beet greens and pumpkin seeds and sunflower seeds and things like that also, you know, but they're just not in as great amounts.
Right. Okay, awesome. Thank you for that. So a couple of people also want to know, what are your approaches to treating certain diseases and cures? So I'm going to ask you about a couple of things, and if you could just give us a quick rundown about what people can do if they have these things, or direct them, you know, to your page, and tell them where they can find this information if they're dealing with any of these. So let's go through them. Diabetes. So you have a program called On the Road to Sweet Recovery. What is the Sweet Recovery?
Well, it's pretty much, you know, just a play on the name, because diabetes is associated with sugar. You know, in our community, we just call it the sugar.
Sugar, right.
And the approach is, again, it's holistic in its nature. So we're looking at the spiritual aspect. What's the underlying feeling that's causing you to crave these different sugars and starches and things like that will lead to that accumulation. And, a lot of times that's dealing with love. So we're looking at somebody's love life, and not only just love as far as a romantic relationship, but looking at maybe the love that they're getting from their family members, the love that they're getting from their friends or from their associates, or lack thereof. We're looking at it from a mental perspective. So how do you perceive the foods that you eat? Or how is it that you perceive your life at the moment? We're looking at it from the types of foods, of course, and there's a lot of misconceptions about that, and that goes into the mental aspect too, as we're looking at the type of information. So what type of information do you have about diabetes? Because a lot of people have wrong concepts about diabetes. It's a common thing. The statistics on diabetes in our community, if I remember correctly, is about 25% of African-American adults, if I remember correctly.
Wow.
So we're looking at 1 in every 4 adults that you run into will be diabetic.
Wow.
Statistically speaking. And so we still have wrong information because a lot of people don't know what diabetes is. They think it's sugar. They think it's sugar accumulation in the blood. Is wrong. Diabetes is when the pancreas is not functioning properly. And the sugar buildup in the blood is a byproduct of that. And so we want to make sure that we have the concept straight, because that way it eradicates a lot of myths about how to go about addressing the issue. And that's why a lot of people are prone to take the pharmaceutical drugs, because from the perspective of, okay, well, we're just looking at the symptom of it, not knowing it's a symptom, but we're saying that diabetes is sugar in the blood. And so, yeah, you can take a drug that's going to help to, relieve excess sugar from the blood, which a lot of them help to, help the body to metabolize sugars, or they help the body to relieve a lot of sugar through urinating, by forcing an action on the kidneys. So, yeah, you can address that issue, but if you're still eating the same foods, if you're still not addressing the pancreas and working to strengthen and build the pancreas up with the proper nutrients, the proper herbs and things of that nature, then you're still going to have the condition, and you're just in a revolving door as far as the treatment is concerned. And that's why they'll tell you diabetes is incurable and you have to stay on drugs the rest of your life. You can just manage it. And that's the way that the system approaches a condition like that, is management, not curing. When diabetes can actually be gone completely, there's actually a documentary where they show that people have reversed diabetes in 30 days.
Wow.
But 3 months, 6 months, just without going to, a retreat, like they were in a particular retreat and they had people preparing their food and all of that. And that's not really necessarily put past anybody, but just lifestyle, and to keep it practical, 6 months time to a year, you can eradicate diabetes completely.
Wow, that is amazing. Now, what about you have high blood pressure on your site as well?
Yes.
How can people go about, lowering their blood pressure? I mean, this is an ongoing epidemic in the African community. People are getting quadruple heart bypasses, having strokes, heart attacks. So what are some of the root causes of high blood pressure, and what are some of the steps that people can take to lower their blood pressure?
Well, the main root cause of high blood pressure is stress. That's as simple as it is. You know, that's a main cause. Now, there's different types of stress. You know, you have mental stress, you know, which is dealing with, you know, how you are perceiving things, worrying about things too much.
Right.
So worrying about how you're going to pay the bills, worrying about how I'm going to be late to work, I'm stuck in traffic, those type of things. You know, you have the emotional stress, which is, you know, basically somebody is, you know, you're feeling a certain way about whatever is going on situationally. You have physical stress, which is brought about by the foods that we eat, you know, brought about by toxic environments, you know, and environmental stress, which is brought about by what we're surrounding ourselves with.
Mm-hmm.
So we want to look at all of those different perspectives, and then we start to address it. We start to address the particular organs or systems of the body that deal with managing stress. So if we want to deal with managing stress, we want to deal with the kidneys, with the adrenal glands. You know, which the adrenal glands is what is responsible for kicking out a lot of the stress hormones. We want to deal with the nervous system, because when the nervous system is calm, you're less likely to be stressed out. When you're stressed, the nervous system is overexcited. So these are the different things that we start to work with. You know, the kidneys is also responsible for helping to make sure that a lot of things that settle around the heart, you know, can be disposed of properly. You know?
Right.
So we want to make sure that the kidneys are strong.
Yes, for sure. We have so much dialysis happening because of our kidneys. I mean, how can we avoid that? Because that process seems painful and unnecessary. Like, what are some proactive steps that we can take to avoid being in these dialysis centers and dying?
One of the main things, you want to make sure that you keep your body hydrated. And our people do not drink water. We drink everything else but water. You know, or we may drink water, but we drink small amounts of water. And we drink water inconsistently. And we drink poor quality waters. You know, so we're drinking tap water. We're drinking water from Deer Park and Poland Spring, and, you know, the local supermarket brand that just says purified water. You know, those types of waters like that don't absorb well in the body. They don't keep the body hydrated. And what you may even notice is that a lot of them will run through you. So one of the things that I hear often when I'm asking people and speaking with them about their choice in water or drinking water, period, is they'll say, well, I don't drink water because, you know, I'm at a job where I don't have but so many breaks, and every time I drink water, I run right to the bathroom. So I just avoid drinking water. And when your body, I mean, of course, going to the bathroom and, you know, as far as drinking water is a necessary process and it's going to happen. But, you know, the type of water that you drink will determine how much that you're going to actually be going to the bathroom, because some of that water, or a good portion of that water, should be absorbed by your cells, and it shouldn't pass right through you. So if the water is passing right through you, that means that your body's not taking it. You know, and so we want to look at the types of waters that we drink, drinking better quality waters that have more alkalinity as opposed to acidity, which means that it's going to have the alkaline-forming minerals, or trace minerals, or some people call them electrolytes, you know, which is why they sell the Gatorade and Powerade and all of that stuff. You know, they sell, the selling point of that is the electrolytes within them.
Right.
That helps to maintain the hydration of the body, so it helps the cells to absorb the water.
Right.
So that's an important point, making sure that we drink the right types of water, and making sure that we drink a good amount of water on a daily basis. So that way we keep ourselves hydrated. Because the water is a moving entity. You know, it keeps things moving within the body, keeps things flowing. There's no life pretty much anywhere on earth where there's no water.
Exactly.
You have to look at that. There's no civilization where there's absolutely no water around. So we need water. Water is a very, very important component of energy, of, you name it. But it's a carrying agent. And so it helps to move toxins out, as well as keeping us hydrated. So we definitely need to make sure that we're on that.
Yes. I also noticed on your website, www.uYEU360.com, you even talk about cures for colds and flu. So have you found the cure to the common colds? Because I know school started, and at the beginning of the year, everybody gets sick. So have you found the cure to the common cold?
Well, again, we're dealing with prevention, or we're dealing with the actual cleansing of the body. So when you're dealing with it from the preventative aspect, you keep up your immune system. You do things because a strong immune system is the best defense in the world. Once your immune system is strong, and it's already been exposed to the virus that they say causes the cold, then the body can fight that off. If you're not eating a lot of things that's building up a whole lot of mucus plaque in your system where those types of viruses and germs can lie and thrive, you don't have the environment for them. And so they're not going to be able to proliferate at the same rate. They're not going to be able to overtake your body as easily. So you want to keep your immune system strong. So there's nutrients, there's herbs, which are listed in that particular article there. But things like, food-based sources and natural supplementations of vitamin C, and it's important to get it from foods because your body takes nutrients better from foods because there's other nutrients that help to support the way that your body absorbs it. Just like you can't grow a vitamin C in nature. You can't grow a vitamin D. It comes in its form, and there's many different even types of what is called vitamin C or components that make up vitamin C. So it's not just a singular vitamin C, but there's different forms of it. There's different forms of vitamin D. There's different forms of vitamin B. There's different forms of what makes up vitamin A. And so all of these things, are found in food. And when you take those things and you isolate them as particular supplements, then they're not going to be as effective because it's missing something, and your body is going to be missing something in turn.
Right.
So I always advocate whole foods, whole herbs. So herb-wise, there's things like elderberry, which is a very good tonic to help to keep the immune system strong. You have some people eat onions, and make sure that they eat onions, a good amount of them every day, maybe a whole onion a day. I've heard some people doing with success and say that they really never get a cold. Garlic, utilizing raw, fresh garlic in a lot of your food, that can be good for some people. So there's many different things. I also have a powder called Camu Camu, and I've known people, and I use that myself as well, but people who use that on a regular basis and they don't get colds. So there's a lot of things that you can utilize just to keep your immune system up. And, of course, making sure you drink the proper water, as I just mentioned, to keep your body detoxified, cleanse your system, with the changing of the seasons is also a good practice as well. Detoxify from anything that you may be carrying or harboring that could potentially, serve as a breeding ground for those types of germs.
Right. Now, another question from one of our listeners. How do you feel about self-medication methods in the Pan-African and African traditional spiritual community, like marijuana. How do you feel about that? What's the deal with weed and the highs and lows?
Well, marijuana itself is a very medicinal plant.
Mm-hmm.
And the same can be said for a lot of plants. You know, most plants, if not all, have some benefit to them.
Mm-hmm.
Even the ones that are considered as toxic and poisonous, and the ones that people consider as drugs, you know, which the plant itself is, you know, in the sense of the word drug in a way that we use it. The plant itself is not a drug. You know, so marijuana itself is not a drug. But when you take fire and you put the fire to the marijuana, when you're smoking it and inhaling it, it changes its chemical composition.
Mm.
And it creates a substance that's toxic. But yeah, it still has some of the medicinal qualities of the natural herb itself. You know, but you're also altering it and you're making it more toxic to the body. So you have your benefits from it, and then you have your downside to it as well. And I know many people who will argue and say that, you know, marijuana, there's nothing wrong with smoking marijuana and nobody's died from it. I've heard all types of different things about that. But at the end of the day, that doesn't make it healthy for you, and it creates a condition inside the body where your body is compromised. And it shows because the body doesn't lie. It shows in the way that certain people's behaviors are. You know, so when we're looking at it from a holistic perspective of whether or not it's healthy for you, then I would say no, smoking marijuana I haven't seen it be healthy for anyone. And that's from my experience and from my research and studies. However, you know, marijuana can be used in other forms also. It can be used as a tea. It can be used as, I've even heard of people juicing the leaves, you know, and the seeds can be utilized, you know, as a food. You know, hemp, you know, which is in the same marijuana family. Hemp seeds is one of the most nutritional seeds that you can find. You know, so in those other aspects of it where it's used in its more whole form, you know, and without it being altered by the chemical reaction of adding the fire to it and inhaling the smoke, you know, which is damaging to the lungs, damaging to the kidneys, damaging to the liver. Smoke in any form, directly inhaled, you know, then it can be a very beneficial herb. The same thing can be said with, you know, coca leaves, which is used to make cocaine.
Right.
You know, coca leaves and cocaine are two different things. You know, you look at poppy seeds, which is used to make heroin. Poppy seeds and heroin are two different things. You know, so poppy seeds has a medicinal benefit where it calms the nerves down. You know, and can help to alleviate depression. When you look at the use of the drug heroin, isn't that what it's used for? But the poppy seeds, you can see poppy seeds and different varieties of poppy seeds that are added to breads, and there's nothing wrong with it.
Right.
It still contains the same chemical, you know, that is attributed to the effect that it has with providing what's called the opiates, you know, which makes the body feel good, you know, which is where the word opium comes from. But, you know, it's when it's chemically processed, when it's altered, when it's denatured, is when it becomes more harmful to the body.
Right. Interesting. So I know earlier we spoke about, I'm kind of changing roads here. We spoke about, you know, having the discipline to change our lifestyles. And part of some of our tradition or our traditional Geechee Goa and Afro-Creole types, they like the soul food. And I want to know from you, is it truly slave food, which we should be completely exercising from the conscious community's menus altogether because it is harming us, or should we keep it as a tradition and only eat it at certain times of the year, or can we make soul food more modern and healthy for us to eat?
Well, my personal view on it is that I'm all about changing it completely. That's my personal view. You know, that's not a view that I would necessarily impose upon a client or someone who I'm counseling or someone who is trying to make a transition to a healthier lifestyle. And the reason I say that for myself is that, you know, I'm looking at the mentality behind it, and I'm looking at, you know, the historical context of it, and whether or not, you know, that's a good tradition to keep up and to pass down from generation to generation when we see the harmful effects that it's having, even from a mental standpoint. So some people, you know, and I mean, there's alternatives to a lot that's out here now that are vegetarian and vegan alternatives to a lot of the foods that people are used to eating as far as animal flesh and milks and things of that nature, which can be used to substitute and make things palatable. It doesn't mean that those things are necessarily the healthiest for you neither, you know, but as far as, you know, if somebody is going through an issue where they have, say, a heart blockage or they have a family history of heart blockages, for example, you know, and you're eating a fake bacon sandwich as opposed to a real bacon sandwich that's made from pork, then yeah, the fake bacon sandwich may be a little bit healthier for you because it doesn't have the same fat content, the same cholesterol, you know, all of those different things that are associated with accumulating that debris that's going to clog the heart up, you know. But however, it can have other effects. It can still slow down your digestive system. You know, it may not. A lot of products like that are made from soy, you know, which or soy protein is very concentrated, which can alter your hormonal levels. You know, so there's a lot of things out there that, you know, it's like you're trying so hard to just maintain this the mental image or the emotion of what goes along with unhealthy habits. And so for that particular reason, I say I'm all for just eliminating it as a whole, you know. But for those people who, you know, because we hold emotional attachments to food as people. And that's the reason why we eat a lot of the foods that we eat, because we associate foods with emotions. So we associate, you know, having that turkey at Thanksgiving with us being around our family. That's a conditioning. It's a mental it's a mental picture that was passed on to us. But nonetheless, we still associate that with it because that's how we grew up. And so with that, it's hard for a lot of people to break away from that type of a habit when it's become a habit and it's already set. You know, so for those types of things, you know, just to keep people from reverting back to what's totally not going to be beneficial for them, you know, then I would say, yeah, you maybe do that once in a while and use healthier alternatives for it. You know, but ultimately the goal should be to get away from that whole mindset.
Wow, I like that. Now, if there was one last thing that you could leave the Pan-African and African traditional spiritual community with, just as something that they should strive for concerning their health and how they could be better priests, priestesses, light workers, what would you say that was?
Wow.
What that is?
I would say on yourself first. I would say focus on yourself first and be the best you that you can be. And that's in all aspects of life. Because a lot of times, and I can speak from personal experience as well, and many other people who are colleagues of mine and friends of mine who do the same type of work. And we often, you know, are so busy trying to help everyone else in our lives, and, you know, how we are keeping up with ourselves can quickly turn to shambles because we're not putting the proper energy back into our own vessels, into our own ways of living. And this is a lot more difficult to do the job properly of trying to care for others when you're not in a good state yourself. Because before, again, everything starts with energy. And so if your energy is not right and you're transferring that energy and saying that you're trying to heal someone else, you're transferring bad energy to them. And we want to keep our energy in the best state as possible.
Right. Now, how can our listeners get in contact with you or, request some of your services and, the things that you do? Because you spoke about a lot of things and you have a lot of knowledge about health and how we can get back to our optimal state of health. So I know people are going to want to reach out to you. And what should people be contacting you with? Maybe there's certain things that you don't even touch or deal with.
Best ways to contact me is through my phone. My personal phone number is area code 202-469-0264. That's area code 202-469-0264, which you can reach me typically between 9 a.m. and 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, either through call or text. You can also reach me on Facebook, which is facebook.com/DOCTAYEW, facebook.com/DOCTAYEW, Dr. U. And you can also reach me through email, DRYEW@ymail, the letter Y, mail, MAIL.com. That's DRYEW, like Dr. U, @ymail.com. And so, yes, those are the best ways to reach me. Either one is fine. And also my website, www.yew360.com. It's yew360.com.
Awesome. Well, thank you for all of the information that you have given us. Anu Asafo, greatly appreciate your time and the work that you're doing in the community.
Please check out anu-bookstore.com for book releases from Anu Publishing, such as Grasping the Root of Divine Power, Solutions for Dysfunctional Family Relationships, and Natural Hair for Young Women. At anu-bookstore.com, you'll find books on the Orisha tradition, African religion, divination, cross-cultural relationships, and many more forthcoming titles. At anu-bookstore.com, you'll find works that serve your journey to evolution and high vibratory sustainment. The website is anu-bookstore.com. And now back to our segment.
Ashe and Hotep. We'd like to thank all of you for your attendance in this week's Enlightenment and Transformation Network show, Anu Asafo. We thank our guest, Yuma Bellomi, better known as Dr. U, co-founder and chief executive officer of U360 Holistic Health and Wellness, for such a wonderful interview today. That thank you comes from our Anu Asafo Show staff, Wale, Mango, Ifa, Omilade Oya, and me, Ifawumi Oshundele. And also a great thanks and for his support, our Chief Jegna, Haru Yuya T. Asamanu. Please join us on Sundays at 1 o'clock p.m. Eastern Standard Time on the Anu Asafo Radio Show at Blog Talk Radio. Odabo.
We thank you for your listening support and urge you to become an active participating member. For all those listening, if you'd like to gain a clearer and fundamental understanding of the Anu Order, be sure to pick up the book, Grasping the Root of Divine Power. To find out how you can become a student and member of the Anu Spiritual Order, please visit us at saduluhouse.com. That is SADULUHOUSE.com. Also, if you would like spiritual readings and assistance in your life as it pertains to your spiritual well-being and your divine purpose, please use the contact and scheduling forms to schedule a consultation with our Chief Jegna, Haru Yuya Asan Anu. Those forms are located at orishareligion.com. That is orishareligion.com, as well as are at saduluhouse.com. Also, sign up for the Anu newsletter for the latest happenings in the Anu community. The newsletter can be found by going to anunation.org. That is ANUNATION.org. If you'd like to become an on-air guest or sponsor on Anu Asafo or any of our other broadcasts, please be sure to contact us at questions@anunation.org. That is the word questions@anunation.org. Thank you for your continued support, and be well.